Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football, and welcome back to another edition of Football Theory. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, pleased to be joined by my good friend, esteemed colleague, and newest member of the On Texas Football family. And sooner or later, I do have to stop saying newest member because he's been with us for a long time. Now, my man Jeff Howe. What's going on, Jeff? How you doing, brother?
I'm terrific, Rod. And actually, I want to thank our chats from our Tuesday night live stream for inspiring this topic. And this is actually right up your alley because and this is how football theory goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you introduce our sponsor here in a second, but it started with a name, and the name got me down a rabbit hole of the position. And then I started thinking big picture with the secondary, and boom, here we are. It's a topic for football theory this week.
I love it. See, honestly, that is how football theory works. That's kind of the formula used to be for Longhorn Blitz too. You just gotta go down. It's rabbit holing at your finest. That's what we do here on Football Theory. First of all, before we dive into the topic, let me tell you about our fabulous sponsor, and we're so grateful for having Laura Baker and her team as a part of our team here on On Texas Football. Football Theory brought to you by accomplished Austin realtor Laura Baker. Laura and the Andy Allen team at Keller Williams can handle all of your real estate needs in the Austin area. Laura is not only a diehard Longhorn fan, but she is a longtime Austin real estate expert. So if you have any concerns or questions regarding real estate in the Austin area, or if you are looking to purchase real estate in the Austin area, there's only one person that you need to contact, and that is Laura Baker. She's a longtime Austin real estate expert and a true lifetime Longhorn. Give her a shout, 512-784-0505. That's 512-784-0505. Or you can reach out at Laura at AndyAllenTeam.com. That's Laura at AndyAllenTeam.com. And thank you very much to Laura Baker and her team for sponsoring Football Theory right here on Texas Football. All right, Jeff, boom. Give the folks the topic du jour for Football Theory today.
So I said this is right up your alley, Rod, because the player question was Kobe Black. And really the question was, hey, how much time do you guys think Kobe Black is going to see this year? How much are we going to see of Kobe Black? And my thing was, it depends. I think it depends on a lot of things. I think it depends on how he does in camp. I think it depends on guys like Grayson Littleton and Cade Phillips and Santana Wilson, how they do playing behind him. Do those guys, does their play in camp and does their progress, their trajectory, does it merit high-level snaps early in the season? And I started thinking about the secondary as a whole because you lose Jahdae Barron, but you still got the potential to have a really nice secondary this year. And obviously you lose Andrew Makuba too. But, with Jalen Gilbo at the nickel and knowing you've got the flexibility to have Jelani McDonald play some big nickel. And at safety, you've got Derek Williams coming back from the injury. And you still got Manny Muhammad. We look at the secondary, Rod, and we're looking at, okay, how are the reps going to be divided? How's the competition going to go? I actually think this opens the door for, again, we talk about the schematic evolution of Pete Kwiatkowski's defense. Like, what is 2025 going to bring us? And we've talked a lot about the defensive front, where you've got all kinds of pass rushers. You can deploy pass rushers at the first and second level, and between guys like Brad Spence and Anthony Hill and Trey Moore and Colin Simmons. I even throw guys like Lance Jackson and Justice Terry in there. You can mix and match and have all different kinds of fronts and shades and looks and still be able to rush the passer on any given down without being predictable. I think you could potentially have the same thing in the secondary, Rod, but I think it's going to take some time to get there. But the big thing in the secondary for me is, as good as your defensive front is going to be, we know Johnny Nance is going to have some input on coverages. Obviously, PK. Coach Akina is the defensive pass game coordinator, so that's going to be a big part of what he does, taking over that role from Terry Joseph, where in terms of game planning, you're the one coming up with coverages. They can really roll right with any kind of coverage they want. They don't have to lock themselves into saying, we want to be primarily a cover 3 defense, or we want to be a cover 2 team, or we want to play, hey, just drop everybody in the zone coverage, or be, a cover 1, whatever the case is. You can mix and match. And that to me is the exciting thing with the personnel, because based on the opponents you play, that if you need to be a predominantly man team that week,
you can do it.
You can be. If you have a week where you need to be primarily a zone team, you've got the bodies to do that. So basically, Rod, I'm looking at the secondary very similar to how I look at the defensive front. And you're good, and your defensive front's good enough that whatever coverage you want to roll with in a given week, you can do it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. When you look at, because I remember Nick Saban ultimately saying, listen, the ideal coverage, the perfect coverage is cover 1. It's just man-to-man coverage. But the problem is you got to have the dogs to do it, because you got elite athleticism now at wide receiver now. And ultimately, if the guy gets enough protection, you can essentially beat coverage. And I've talked about that time and time again. If you look at the evolution of Texas, like that's even last season, right? Look at Texas last season. And Texas secondary was, in my opinion, the best secondary potentially in the country, and pass defense as well. But once you faced capable NFL caliber quarterbacks in the playoffs, and that's what happened, right? When you face Sam Levitt, and then, of course, Cade Klubnik, because I think he was probably the best example. He's probably the best quarterback in college football returning this season. Those guys are going to play in the league. We saw them make plays against Texas, and they weren't consistent. They weren't like eating Texas up, but, man, they made plays against Texas. And ultimately, that's because Texas was a little bit predictable when it came to their coverages, because last season they were 113th in the country in man coverage rate. So you knew you weren't going to get a lot of man coverage. And they were 117th in press coverage rate. So you knew you weren't going to get a lot of press coverage either. You knew you were going to get mostly, as you expected, quarters. But this is the change up last season. This is how we know, based on your topic, Jeff, that the defense is evolving. Last season was the first season Texas played more single high coverages than they did two high coverages. Initially, PK was a match thirds vision quarters defense when he first got to Texas.
Yes.
That vision quarters basically means it's kind of static zone. You're playing whatever your zone is. You don't match. Match means you match the guy in your zone, and essentially that zone becomes a man defense. It deteriorates into man defense. It's a zone matchup concept. Well, when PK first got here, he wasn't playing a lot of match quarters. That was the influence, as we know, all right, of Gary Patterson saying, no, man, match quarters is the way to go. You limit the explosive plays, and then you can still, if you got safeties that can play the run from depth, you can still add guys late to the run. Just because you only have six guys in the run in the box doesn't mean you only got 6 guys in the run fit. You can have 8 guys in the fit, but only 6 guys in the box. That's what quarters allows you to do. And so PK switched it up, and now Texas has played a lot of match quarters. But last season, the Johnny Nansen influence, as you talked about, I think it really did influence and almost compel PK with some of the more exotic looks to play more single high coverages, which is your cover 3, which is your cover 1, right, in your single high looks. And sometimes when Texas goes into some of that combo coverages, where they're playing, depending on what side of the field, strength or boundary or field, they're playing a combo coverage, one side basically splitting coverages in half, playing 2 to one side or playing 4 to the other, and that kind of stuff. So either way, I think Texas has evolved and grown with the coverage this year. And I don't know what the next step is. My belief is it's probably going to be more man coverage, but I could see them just being more diverse overall, which is your theory.
Yeah, the guy that I really credit, Johnny Nansen's influence, like you said, Rod, was huge. So was Gary Patterson's. And Gary Patterson also specialized in split coverages too. That was one thing he was really big on, was running a lot of split coverage. And we talk about the pattern match quarters that, Gary Patterson, Nick Saban, Pat Narduzzi, their coverages is all kind of from the same tree. But why Gary Patterson had to perfect it, because when the Big 12 was so pass spread heavy, when you had Art Briles and Cliff Kingsbury and Dana Holgerson, basically to keep it at bay until John Haycock came up with that 3 high scheme, you basically had to just to manage everybody's tempo and their vertical passing game. Everybody had to run some form of quarters, and you had to be really good at it. The better defenses in the Big 12 were really good at it. So that was why the Gary Patterson influence came in, because we talked about it too, Rod. The Texas staff kind of misjudged initially. I think PK did what the Big 12 was. He kind of thought it was more the Big 12 10 years earlier, when, as we know, it had really evolved. And it was, as you like to say, it was a passing league. It was a running league masquerading as a passing league. It's like, oh, no, they spread you out. They want to throw it. No. They want to run the football. We know we can go down that rabbit hole another day. But I credit, you look at all these evolutions of the Texas defense, and it all go, and we'll see it again with Coach Akina coming back, because you talked about it here on the channel. If you're going to play in the secondary for Dwayne Akina, you better be able to lock up and play man coverage, because if you can't, you're probably not going to have a home. or at least your reps are going to be cut down severely. The fact that Texas is able to evolve speaks to who Pete Kwiatkowski is as a coach. And you talk to people who are around him at Washington and his other stops, they'll tell you, man, he is the most selfless coach, like no ego, willing to check his ego at the door. He'll admit when he's wrong. He's willing to adapt. He'll sacrifice, something he likes for the greater good of the staff. Did that at Washington when Chris Peterson needed to keep Jimmy Lake around.
Yeah.
PK took a demotion.
That's right.
Being co-coordinator. So that way they could keep Jimmy Lake on the staff.
Yeah.
I think you see it now. Hey, LeAllen Clark's a guy that can really help pass rush. PK loves being a position coach, but guess what? He feels LeAllen Clark can make this defense better. So he'll take a step back from being a position coach and just kind of be the CEO defensive coordinator, if you will. So I know that's kind of a little off topic from where we're going, but I think as we look at
that's maybe the secret sauce you're talking about right
there. As we look at the defensive evolution of Pete Kwiatkowski, I think we need to look at Pete Kwiatkowski, the man, and tip our cap and say, you know what? It's a selfless guy that's willing to check his ego at the door that's allowing the Texas defense, even as the personnel losses stack up, Rod, year after year, you're putting a better product on the field.
That's damn good, brother. I agree with you because I always say, sometimes you got to take the poker mindset when you're, play calling, right? In football, you got to play the man and not the hand. Sometimes you got to play the hand, not the man. Depends on the situation. Yeah. And for PK, so sometimes you have to think about how like the makeup of a play caller or the makeup of a football player and how they are going to approach a certain situation. And for PK, I'm with you. I think the secret sauce to his brilliance, maybe the fact that he doesn't have an ego.
Yeah.
He's like, no, it don't have to be my way. The most effective way wins. And the GP influence, we saw it with Gary Patterson. The year Gary Patterson came in, I'll give you the GP influence right now. Because if you look at in 2021, GP's last year, Gary Patterson's last year, the cover 4 usage and rate for TCU was around 53%. That was his last year at TCU. He comes to Texas in 2022. Texas in 2021, they were running about 30%, 33% cover 4. GP comes in, and in 2022, they jumped to 54%. They're right there.
Yeah.
That's GP saying, bro, I got the keys to the kingdom. I got the cliff notes. Let me give it to you. You got to play match quarters in this conference.
Yeah.
And now you get the Johnny Nansen influence, right? That came in 2024. And Johnny Nansen at Arizona, they played 85% single high rate, more than any other program in the country. They were running single high coverages. He comes in, and for the first time since PK's been here, he runs more single high coverages than 2 high coverages. That's a Nansen influence. But he's not stubborn. He's like, nah, whatever works. That works. Okay, you got a better solution than I got? Let's do it. Jimmy Lake, you got a better solution than I got? Let's do it. That's the brilliance of PK. No ego. So he'll always have the better solution because he's willing to listen and he's willing to open up. That's what makes him a football theorist.
Yeah. And I think you look at it, both those guys came to Texas at the right time because that 21 defense was just, it was just bad. Like there was really nothing that defense did that you'd be like, okay, they were really good at that. Like, no, we saw some of the personnel get better. And like towards the end of the year you started to say, this defense is a lot better when Byron Murphy and Jahdae Barron and Jalen Ford. It's a lot better when those guys are on the field more. And turns out that they were just better than some of the veterans that were in front of them and just needed to play more. But you look at Gary Patterson when he came in at the right time, because at the time, we talk about the abundance of pass rushers that Texas has now. There were none at that point. So you had to rely on coverage more than pressure because we know PK is not a big blitz guy.
Nope.
So you didn't have that. You weren't able to create an organic pass rush. So you're going to be more coverage based. And we talked about it because PK's admitted it going from 23 to 24. They were really concerned about losing Sweat and Murphy. Hey, we're not just going to be able to sit in a 2-high shell and defend the run like we could because we have the best tackle tandem in the country. We need to count on getting an extra guy in the box or having an extra head available and play more middle field closed rather than middle field open with a post safety. So, and the fact that Johnny Nansen, like you said, Rod, did it more than anybody in the country in 23 at Arizona, those two guys came to help PK right at the right time when the defense had to make the pivot that it made. And I say that now, probably you're bringing in Coach Akina at a time where the kind of corners you recruited, I know college football is different, Rod, than when you got into it, but I'd still like to think the easiest coverage for a young corner to play is just going to be straight up man coverage. And you've got guys, not only have the body types and the skill sets, but the mindset, whether you're talking about Kobe Black, Santana Wilson, Grayson Littleton, Cade Phillips. Those are the guys that you want to. Sark's talked about he wants to be more of a man coverage team, be stickier in man covers. Well, now you got the bodies to go do it.
Yep.
And we'll see what happens. But I think the other thing too, as we wrap this up, the big piece for me is the nickel position and the flexibility you've got there. Because if you want to just have, be in the big nickel, great. Jelani McDonald was your big nickel last year, and you can use him in that role. And you can use Jalen Gilbo at corner or kind of wherever you want to use him. If you're playing a team that's more, you feel like, hey, they're going to burn us more with the pass, or we need to be on our toes a little more. All right. Keep Jelani McDonald back at safety and put Jalen Gilbo in the game at nickel. So I think the nickel flexibility, the corner flexibility, and the presence you got at safety with the returning All-American and Michael Taft, you've got the perfect recipe, Rod, to be as versatile as you want to be in terms of coverage.
And to end it, I love that point. To add to it, to piggyback on it, I've said I think the last two phases to build this defense and to evolve it for PK are going to be multiplicity and man coverage. They're going to start using more man coverage and more multiplicity, just with guys they're multi-dimensional players. They can do a lot of different things on defense. And that's why I think people think when I talk about man coverage a lot, that Texas is going to become predominantly a man coverage team. No. They just want the variety. I think what Jeff is talking about is to hit the nail on the head. I think ultimately they just want the ability to play whatever they want to play. I don't think they had the confidence to play a ton of man coverage last season or the year before that. I think now with the athletes they're starting to recruit, all right, the Cade Phillips of the world, those kind of guys, Kobe Blacks of the world, I think now they're believing that they got the kind of athletes on the outside to play not only man coverage, but press man coverage if they need to. I do believe, and I'll just give you this before we leave, I do believe man coverage rate will go up. Last season, Texas was 113th in the country in man coverage rate. They're probably playing, if you look at cover one, they're about 15%. The average in college football is around 21% man coverage. Texas is below that. They're about 15%. Take the zero coverage rate in, they're about less than 2% zero coverage rate. So Texas is less than 17% overall man coverage rate. And the college football average is around 27%. Just total man coverage rate, 1 or 0. But this is why I know they're going to play more man coverage. You go look at Coach Akina last year at Arizona as the defensive coordinator. They were 90th percentile in man coverage rate. Kenoto Hudson, before he came to Texas, when he was at Ole Miss as the cornerbacks coach, they were 70th percentile in man coverage rate. I look at Mark Orfe. In 2024, Rutgers, 80th percentile in man coverage rate. Played a lot of press, by the way, too. In 2023, they were top 10 in man coverage rate in 2023. Texas is going to play more man coverage. They just want they want to take their time evolving into it. It's not going to be their bread and butter, but I don't know if they're going to have a bread and butter.
I don't think they need one.
It was match quarters, right? It was match quarters from 2022 to 2023. That was their bread and butter. Last season, cover 3 actually overtook quarters coverage as their predominant coverage because they were playing a lot of single high coverages. So I think ultimately, I don't know what we're going to get this year. I don't know if they want to be put in a box. I think they want to be able to be malleable and be able to adapt to whatever the situation may be, getting back to Jeff's original point. So.
Go back to the Ohio State game last year. Last thing I'll say, go back to the Ohio State game last year. How much, 3 high safety Texas played in that game. You're going to get to the point now. Remember all those Mondays we've had where Sark is like, man, they came out and stuff we hadn't seen. They hadn't put it on film. We weren't ready for it. You're going to hear a lot of Texas opponents, that head coach or offensive coordinator come out on Monday, said, you know what? We didn't see him playing a lot of man on tape, and they just came out playing a ton of man, and they played a lot of man single high. They came out, playing more match quarters, and I don't think we were ready for it. Now, if you're PK and Dwayne Akina and Johnny Nansen, now you are doing this when in today's football, you're in such a great spot as a defensive staff and a defensive coordinator if you're able to dictate the terms of the game. And I think that's where Texas is right now on defense. They're able to dictate the terms of the game by not being predictable.
Good stuff there, Jeff. All right, Football Theory brought to you by accomplished Austin realtor Laura Baker. Laura and the Andy Allen team at Keller Williams can handle all of your real estate needs in the Austin area. Laura is not only a diehard Longhorn fan, but a longtime Austin real estate expert. So give her a shout today. If you have any questions or concerns regarding real estate in the Austin area, 512-784-0505. That's 512-784-0505, or reach out at laura@andyallenteam.com. Thank you very much to Laura Baker and her team for sponsoring Football Theory. Jeff, thank you very much as well for all of your expertise and knowledge. Great stuff today, as always. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes, twisting and tweaking the dials, and for Matthew and for Jeff and for accomplished Austin realtor Laura Baker. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, hook 'em horns.